I always liked road trips. As a little kid, my parents would wake me up every few months with a surprise trip to some national park, zoo, theme parks, resorts, or you name it. I have been to every state, every major city, seen it all. That, if not a stretch of road, that went on forever, disappearing into the horizon, always felt more at home than anything. It's probably what drove me to become a truck driver. The company I work for makes deliveries to all sorts of places in the United States of America, many of which are very familiar to me. It's all become so familiar, in fact, that there are times I seem to blink my eyes and suddenly I am at my destination, hours and miles melting away while I drive my rig on autopilot, muscle memory guiding me instead of my eyes. That's why that stretch of road in Kansas stood out to me so much. I'm not sure how it happened, but somehow my crusty muscle memory must have had a brain rot. Because one minute I was heading down a familiar highway, and the next I was traveling down a two-way road surrounded by nothing but miles of wheat. I eased up on the gas, slowly slowing to a crawl. Taking in my surroundings, I was confused. Had I taken an exit too early? That never happened to me, not since my first day. I hit the brakes, my truck and trailer groaning and squealing in complaint, and grabbed my phone. To my surprise, there was no service. I shook my head. For all the driving I did, all the places I went, one would think I would pay for a phone plan with a better coverage. So I went on driving down the road looking for some place to turn around or someone to ask for directions. I drove 30 minutes and was starting to feel the pressure of my company's on time delivery quota pressing down on me. Just as I was starting to wonder if it would be illegal to turn around in a wheat field, I spotted a speck off in the distance. I accelerated, the speck becoming a block, and the block revealing itself to be a building. Finally, civilization. With a grin, I pulled into the parking lot, all but bouncing in my seat with joy. Like I said, I love driving, but I never said I love being lost. The miraculous building was one of those gas stations with fast food joint built into it, giving it a strange misshapen appearance. The difference in the bricks used in the two buildings made it quite apparent that one was built before the other. But upon closer inspection, I wasn't exactly sure which came first. Both seemed ancient, run down. The signs that told me what changed the gas restaurant combo faded into oblivion. The glass, murky, streaked with dust and dirt. The pumps were bleached bare, to not a single sign of what color they had originally been painted. The whole place looked like it had been there since the dawn of time. There weren't any vehicle in the parking lot besides my own, but I hopped out of my truck and walked over to the building. The flickering neon lights that announced open several times a second, giving me all the invitations I needed. I caught my breath at the door, peering in past the grimy glass to see someone standing at the counter. I silently cheered, humanity at long last. I quickly opened the door, and the tinkle of a bell announcing my entrance. The figure behind the counter was a teenage boy whose head snapped to me with sudden quickness. I took in his wide, unblinking gaze and shrugged apologetically. Sorry about that, kid. I didn't mean to scare you out of your daydream. The teen just stared at me, unblinking, mouth open, just as I approached the counter, leaning against it. I'm a bit lost, I continued. Do you have a map of something I can look at? The teenager slowly shook his head. A full, 90-degree turn to the left, and a full 180-degree turn to the right, and then back to looking right at me. Okay, I said, beginning to wonder if the kid had some sort of learning disability. Something about him was definitely off, and his whole waking square thing was beginning to get to me. I mean, I'm sure I was weird as a teen, but I wasn't at all as weird as him. The boy suddenly shot his arm up, causing me to jump in surprise. He held his arm pointed straight out, away from his side, pointing stiffly to his right. Food, he asked, more in a groaning exhale than any sort of speech. I followed the pointed finger to the doorway, connecting the gas station side to the fast food side. My stomach rumbled, and I realized just how hungry I was. Yes, why not? I said, turning back to him. I could go for some. But the boy was gone. The space where he had been standing, vacant. I stood there for a few seconds, my mind not quite able to grasp what had just occurred, until my stomach grumbled again, urging me to grab something, at least some peace for the road. To my surprise, I saw 3 other people all seated around the restaurant. 2 men, unmistakably truckers, like me, and a young woman, her belly swollen up in a way that could only be explained with pregnancy. When I walked in, all 3 looked up from the meals in unison, watching me with a steady, unblinking gaze. I nodded my head at the man, giving a small wave to the woman, and made my way up to the counter. I paused, though, as the teenager from the gas station site rose up from behind the counter. I wasn't sure how he got there in such a short time, unless this was his dream. I approached him, cracking a joke. "Long time no see?" I said, laughing. I tried to make the laugh sound genuine, but, truth to be told, the entire situation I was in made me feel closer to fear. Concerned, maybe, at the time. I wasn't sure, but I was definitely uneasy. I ordered a burger and some fries to go, the kid making a quick face about it, and walking behind some shelving, off to fulfill my order. I stood there, waiting, minding my own business, feeling the 3 sets of eyes of the other restaurant goers boring into a back of my head. At least I thought I did. When I glanced behind me, they were all staring down at their respective foods. The sound of a tray being placed down caused me to turn. That where I was greeted with the sight of the teenager and my food. I very distinctly remembering ordering it to go. I thought about asking the kid to correct his mistake, but instead decided it wasn't worth it. Hell, I had been sitting in my truck all day. Might as well sit somewhere else. I made my way to an empty booth, side-eyeing the other people's all, who was still just sitting, still staring at the food. I reached down and grasping a greasy fry and brought it to my mouth. I retched, spitting and dropping my fry in the process. The fry was disgusting, stale and rotten. I gasped, looking down at the mess I had made. The burger scattered across the floor, revealing a maggot-filled patty and moldy buns. "What the fuck?" I said, turning around. "The hell kind of place are you?" The teenager was directly in front of me, his acne-covered face a single inch from mine. I took a step back and bumped into the body of one of the truckers. I looked around the pregnant woman to my left and the other clocker to my right. They had boxed me and looking at me with the same unblinking gaze. They all groaned in the same breed of voice. I don't know what came over me, but I lashed out, taking the teenager right in the mouth, feeling his peach fuzz mustache brushing against my knuckles. But my hand didn't stop there. I felt something give underneath my fist. I heard a sharp grunt and watched as a kid dropped like a stone. He went down hard, clattering to the floor, with the sound like a bundle of sticks. Not thinking, not waiting to accept the consequences of my actions, I leaped over him, running away faster than I had ever ran before, out of the fast food place, out of the gas station, and out and across the parking lot and into the cab of my truck. I slammed the door shut behind me, turning my truck on, and slammed my foot on the gas. It took longer than I wanted to get moving, and, in that time, while my truck was struggling against his own mess, I looked out of the window, across the parking lot. The two truckers and the pregnant woman were standing shoulder to shoulder, directly in front of the gas station. I was horrified as a teenager joined them. He didn't walk up. No, he was dragged out of the store as if some invisible force was tugging him along. He was lifted up arms, legs, and neck, all slack, and set down on his feet. He immediately stiffened up, his head tilting up, revealing his cracked face. My punch had split it right down the middle, revealing a nothingness inside him. He was hollow, an empty husk, and I turned forward, accelerating, and I was gone. It took me a few seconds to find the highway again, and not sure how I just did it. I didn't question it. I didn't want to. I was just glad to be surrounded by other cars and back in my own territory. I have been to every state, every major city, seen it all, but now I know there are some places, hidden among field of wheat, that you never ever want to have been to.